Hello guys and welcome to another video. My name's Mark, I'm an entrepreneur and property investor, and in today's video we're talking about the holy grail, the way you're going to be able to scale your property investment portfolio by getting all of your money out of your property investments, all of your capital that is, and making sure that you can recycle it and buy it and build your portfolio. But before we get into the video, as always, if I could ask you to give it a big like, it really helps me out with the algorithm and I do really appreciate it. And if you haven't already subscribed, why not consider subscribing? Everything on this channel is always free. I don't hold anything back, and I do not do paid property courses. I'm just speaking from my experience and giving as much out as I possibly can. So please guys, give it a subscribe, give it a like, and I do really appreciate it. Let's get into the video and let's talk about how you can scale your property portfolio. Because for me, that is probably the most important part of property investing, being able to go from one property all the way to 4, which is at the point that I believe it starts to really snowball, and then just scale infinitely from there. And I'm currently at 13 properties. If you watched last week's videos, I've got 14 and 15 offered on. I hope to exchange on those shortly. We've got valuations taking place, all the mortgages going through, so a lot going on those. But for me, the key thing has been able to recycle money. And if you remember, I showed a couple of my remortgage statements recently where I got £74,000 back. Now that was me releasing my capital back to myself and has allowed me to fund these next 2 purchases. So it's really, really key to be able to grow a portfolio, to be able to refinance and get that money going through the next deal. So let's talk about the 2 ways that I see it. Number 1 is time in the market. Now I guess the most relevant one for me is my very first property. I bought it for £176,000 back in 2010. It's in Erith, just outside of London, and today it's worth £425,000. That's a huge difference. I've made over £200,000 on capital appreciation alone, and a further 100 and something thousand on the rent. So it's a massive deal. It's allowed me to fund so many of my other purchases just through refinancing that first deal. So I think time in the market's absolutely key. And if we consider that on average, the UK property prices increase by about 6% a year. Now we can argue about that number as much as you want, but ultimately we have to put a figure in so we can come out with roughly where we're going to be. And I would say to you, if you think it's 5%, put 5%. If you think it's 7%, put 7%. But I've done some compound interest just to get an idea. Just time in the market. If you were to buy a £100,000 house today, how long would it take you to get all of your money out in capital alone? And looking at this, it's between 3, 4 and 5 years, depending on how the market performs. So for me, the first way to make sure you get all of your money out is to just allow the market to take care of it for you. Now we live in an inflationary economy. Inflation's incredibly important for our economy as well. Imagine if every year the car that you were going to buy got cheaper. Well, you'd never buy a car, would you? You'd just put the purchase off. So it's incredibly important that inflation exists in order to make sure that assets go up in price and people have an incentive to buy. Because by creating an incentive to buy, you create demand. By creating demand, you create jobs, and so on and so forth. We'll do another video on inflation, but the point is we live in an inflationary economy. We have 6% growth on average in the UK property market. Within 3, 4 or 5 years, you're going to have all of your money out with capital appreciation alone. And this is not even taking into consideration the rental side, which will boost these returns even further. So my very first point is just to allow the market to take hold. Allow the market to inflate the value of your assets. So really that comes down to the old saying, doesn't it? You know, don't wait to buy property and just wait, and the price of that property will go up. Now I've got £3 million worth of property, and we've been running a tally every month when the Halifax house price index gets released of how much capital appreciation I make. And so far in the 3 months we've done it, I'm now up £33,000. That could fund another purchase if I wanted it to. And that really is just the market taking care of everything for me. So don't underestimate the value of the market. Don't underestimate the value of getting your money in play and allowing the market to take care of the rest for you. It's an incredibly forgiving capital market, UK property. Now, number 2 is adding value. Now, this adds more risk and more complexity, and it's quite often referred to as the buy, refurbish, refinance method. So you purchase a property, you refurb it in order to add value, and then you refinance it to release the value that you've added. Now, I said that there's extra risk, didn't I? And there really is, because there's so many unknowns. You don't know what the end value is going to be. You can have an idea, but you don't know where the market's going to be in a couple of months, 3, 6, 12, however long it takes you to do the refurb, and you are looking very short term when it's buy, refurbish, refinance, because you're quite often on a bridging loan. So you don't know where the market's going to be in that shorter space of time. The second thing is you've got this renovation cost, so you need £40,000 in this example, and I'll run through one of my projects as an example, but £40,000 is an awful lot to have in cash in order to fund your renovation. Now you can use development finance, there are other things you can do, but believe me, these costs are adding up and suddenly there'll be no fat left in the deal. I speak to far too many people who spend all the money on fees and in the end they're left with no profit or very, very little profit. They take on all the risk. They'd probably been better off just buying something that was already done and allowing the market, like step one, the market to just take care of it for them. We'll talk about this property specifically because it's one that I own. I bought it, it's over in Corby. I did a video series on it. I don't want to keep banging on about it, but at the same time, it is a great example. I paid 116,000, 85 was a loan, 32 was a deposit. I had 10k of fees and 40k of reno, which means that I had to have £82,000 worth of cash. Now, if I was to buy the end value, which was 200,000, if I was just to buy that house outright straight away, I'd have only need £50,000 plus a few on fees. But you know, you get the point. There's a huge amount extra that went in. And beyond that, I took on a lot of extra risk. Other things could have happened. The building work might have gone over budget. My builders might have gone bust. There's loads of things that could have happened. In this project, everything went okay. I ended up with £44,000 profit. I managed to refinance out about 60,000, paid off my previous loan of 80,000, and I had about 20,000 left in. Today, 6 months later, I'm probably about all money out. It's been rented out for £1,000 a month, and the market has moved on since then. So I'm probably about all money out at this point. But that would be the second way to get all of your money out of a property deal. Now we could talk about ways of using other people's money, using investor finance, all that sort of stuff. But ultimately this video is about how to get all of your money out. I'll do that in another series. And I completely accept that there are other ways of raising finance other than loans, other than mortgages, other than bridging finance. You know, there are other ways of purchasing property using lease options and all sorts of creative strategies. But in this, what I wanted to do was just speak to the people on the other side of the camera who maybe have a bit of cash, who are looking at how do I get into property investing, or maybe they've got their first or second one and they're wondering, should I refinance? And I did another video earlier on last week about should you refinance, and you should check that out if you want to answer that question. But for me, scaling your property portfolio is all about time in the market and adding as much value as you can as you go along. You want to make sure that your risk is minimized and you don't want to take these sort of projects on. Like for example, if this purchase price was 136, it would be completely unviable. There would only been about £14,000 worth of profit. It's just not worth the risk. The amount of things that could have just gone slightly out and meant that I didn't end up with anything. For example, the revalue coming in at 180, the building cost coming in at 50, and suddenly I'm into a loss-making position. So it's really important that you're very, very careful when you're taking on these projects, and we refer to it as having a lot of fat in the deal. You've got to make sure there's a lot of fat in the deal if you're going to be doing a lot of work. So guys, I hope this gives you a good idea of the methods that you can use to get all of your money out. If you haven't already given it a like, give it a like. I hope you appreciate this, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers, guys.